Hello, everybody. You're on the mic. On today's episode, I want to talk about something that's going on over in Japan. So it's something that, to a certain degree, Yellow Flash and Hero Hey have been kind of covering um, bits and pieces of, and just I was watching some videos of theirs earlier today, and I wanted to give some of my commentary on it because one of the things that they've been talking about for, like, I know Yellow Flash been talking about this over the past few months. I know Hero Hay's been starting to cover this a little bit more recently. But there's this idea of there's this intrusiveness that is happening upon the Japanese culture by the West. You know, the the woke culture, the SJW NPC culture here in the West, how we feel that we have to change things to, so we don't offend people, or like, oh my God, we're like, now we're supposedly now starting to try to influence this on other cultures and stuff. And this has been stuff that's been kind of going on, for at least the last couple of years, you know. Um, So more recently, as covered, one of the more recent things that has come to light more recently as Hirohei um Hirohei um and Yellow Flash covered today is that Love Hina creator Ken Akamatsu was called to testify before the Japanese Diet, which is basically their Congress, basically the upper house of their Congress, which would be comparable to our Senate. Basically, he was called before the or they call it the Diet, or I think it's actually pronounced Diet. Bill Flash pronounced it as Diet, but I think it's actually pronounced Diet over there. Where they were talking about the idea as anime has been becoming more and more mainstream, and as you do have more of the money, more of the the consumers coming and buying up, anime and mangas from outside of Japan, they want to try to still preserve the creative freedom of it, to where to preserve their creative freedom, where they're not being told by the West or by China, because there was another story that you know um, you know there was another story about that. So among some of the stories that have come out in this have included um, Chinese company Tencent trying to purchase some rights to some Japanese games and trying to censor it. There's obviously, and we've also, and I know Yellow Flash talked about this too, how Funimation is trying to become part of some anime boards over there. They're trying to buy in through Sony as well, buy up a bunch of Japanese anime companies to try to, there is some belief that they may be trying to dictate to the Japan creators what they can and can't create, which is wrong. As I was watching, Hero Hayes and Flash's videos on this earlier, I was starting to think about how history seems to be repeating itself. There seems to be you know, as we're looking at this, as as here in the West and China are starting to try to have more influence on Japanese creators and on trying to tell them what they can and can't create. It reminds me of another period in Japanese history called the Bakumatsu. Now, some of you probably, if any of you have watched animes such as um, Peacemaker Kurogane, um, Intrigue in the Bakumatsu, Hakuoki, even Shura no Toki had an arc in this. It had some references to it. Um, there was this period in the late 1860s, early 1870s. So here in the states at the time, of course, we were going through the aftermath of the Civil War. So while we were going through the aftermath of the Civil War in Japan, there was this segment of society that wanted to open up to the West, that wanted to bring in more Western culture into the Japanese culture. And there was still a lot of people in Japan. There was another segment that wanted to keep their sovereignty intact. They wanted to keep their nation isolated from the rest of the world. They were a small island nation. They didn't want, now granted, it wasn't as much coming from, America was part of it, but it was more obviously the British and the colonial ideas of the British and all that in other countries coming over to Japan and having some influence. And there was a big, internal revolutionary war going on within Japan over this, where you had the rebel faction known as the Bakumatsu, led by Ryoma Sakamoto, and then you had the shogunate and the more conservative factions, the shogunate, and of course their enforcement arm, the Shinsengumi, the Japanese police force. You know, um, you had a case where you had this war going on in the country where you had one segment of society that wanted to open up and wanted to have cultural, economic, cultural and economic exchanges with the West, where and you had a segment that didn't. Now, basically, what ended up happening is that the Bakumatsu, you know, albeit they did take some damage. Ryoma Sakamoto was eventually was assassinated, but you had this case of Bakumatsu did eventually win, and Japan was opened up to the West. You know, um, of course, what helped the Bakumatsu was the fact that they would use, one of the West inventions, the rifle. You know, and it's like I'm sure many of you have heard the old saying, "You never take a knife to a gunfight," right? It's kind of what was happening here. So the Bakumatsu and many of the European colonists were fighting with guns with you know with you know with guns and with propulsion type weaponry. Why the Japanese were still fighting with swords and still fighting with through samurai and ninja and martial art techniques. Um, so it does seem like though that we seem to be having another Bakuman, this time more of a cultural one in which you have this Western intrusion, this intrusion coming from the West and from China on a lot of these anime and manga artists, and you're finally starting to, and now with Ken Akamatsu testifying before the Diet, and apparently many of the congressmen had agreed with him. One of his suggestions was they wanted to have a national manga center to display more, to try to spark interest domestically in manga and anime again. Because a lot more of the interest is starting to come more from outside, from international sources, from particularly from here in North America and China, and so in order to preserve their cultural heritage and their creative freedom, they especially with as Yellow Flash talked about the population decreasing over there due to the fact of not as many people going out and have raising families. You know, um, basically Japan is a much more as compared to America. Traditionally, Japan is a bit more of a conservative society. You don't see a lot of you know births outside of wedlock. I mean, they do have a social system in which kids can kids can seek welfare on their own as they get older, but yeah, you see this Western intrusion in their culture with these woke ideals of, oh, let's not be a oh, you can't be offensive to women, and we've seen it too. And I know Hirohei has called a lot of attention to this too, in which over here in the West, when we do get the properties of certain animes, we've seen it with Prison School, we've seen it with there was another one, I can't even think of it now. I think a made anime. I just I can't think of it off the top of my head, but where you're starting to see where they're like when they're localizing it, they're now putting in little like woke messaging in it, trying to influence people that way. There was the very famous Gamergate line in in Prison School. I can't think of the title right now, but there was another anime that got talked about a lot, um, involving a maid. It was a maid character in which they mentioned something about like there was this line that they put in there that was totally not what the line was saying about the whole idea about patriarchal views on societal dress or something like that. I'm sure many of you know what I'm talking about, even if I'm not remembering the exact name of the anime. It was I just can't think of the anime right now, but where we've heard of like Sony and Funimation trying to get more involved, buying up more of the anime companies over in the West, trying to, or not necessarily buying them up, but becoming more part of anime production committees, which I know Yellow Flash has reported on, which they're becoming part of these committees to be able to give suggestions and be able to try to influence what the anime and mangaka are are able to produce. And now you're finally with Ken Akamatsu here, the creator of Love Hina, finally coming out and testifying before the Japanese Diet about talking about the idea of having of not allowing the wet not allowing. I think one of the terms that was used in there was this ogly ogliothi, you know, ogliogoths coming in and telling them infringing upon their creative freedom, you know, as to what they can and can't put in their mangas and animes. So yeah, and I'm glad to see that as an anime fan, I'm glad to see this. I even commented on both Hirohei and Yellow Flash's videos today on it. I really do hope that we start seeing more of the manga and anime artists in Japan come out against this Western intrusion, this potential Bakumatsu, cultural Bakumatsu. I really do hope for their sake that we do hear more and more of the manga artists and the anime, those involved in the anime. Um, I hope they come out and really speak out for their art, for their freedom, for their artistic freedom. So I think that's about as much as I can say about this right now. I'm just giving my own take on it. But I think it's something, and I would really implore anime fans to really speak up and if you don't like what companies like Funimation have been doing and Sony what they've been doing and been like really pushing their woke culture on what you like to watch. It's time to speak up. It's been long past time to speak up. Hey, look, we as an anime fan myself, I love anime. I love the product. I love, I'm big. I really love the idea of the harem animes. There are a lot of people in the woke community who say, "Oh, that's sexist." Yeah, yeah, five girls and one guy. Yeah, that's sexist. That's fun. I love how in the harem animes how the interaction between the guy and the girls. I mean, I think that's a lot of guys. And there's reverse harems too. There's like Oron High School Host Club and the Wallflower come to mind as a couple of reverse harem animes. And of course we know of Ken Akamatsu's love. For the harem animes, Love Hina is probably was a popular one at one time. Um, Maburaho, Magikarno. I know Kyoto Anime was big on a number of those. I think Clannad was another one. So, but as an anime fan, I'm glad to see that many of these, that at least some of the manga artists are starting to finally speak up, and some of the anime artists. I hope they do for their sake in terms of trying to preserve their culture and their artistic freedom. So with that being said, that's about as much as I think I can that I need to say on the topic. So now let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. Today being the last day of June 30th. Let's look back on what has happened on this day in Nietzsche history. So first off, I want to go back 75 years to on this date in 1945, the first issue of Patty Walker published by Marvel Comics at the time known as Bard Publishing Corporation. The first issue of Patty Walker, a teen romantic comedy comic, came out on this date. Started out as a quarterly title. It would run for the next 20 years. So Patsy Walker originally debuted in Miss America in Marvel's precursor, Timely Comics, Miss America magazine, number two. That's the character Patsy Walker debuted in that one, and had appeared in that one and in a few other before getting her own title here, starting in 19 on this date in 1945. Patsy Walker would eventually be drawn into the superhero version of the universe, becoming the heroine known as Hellcat. But on this date in 1945, Patsy Walker was still a teenage girl who was following her, where we would follow her romantic foibles with her rival Hetty. So on this date in 1945, the first issue of Patsy Walker, as published by Marvel Comics under the company Bard Publishing Corporation, went out on newsstands on this date in 1945. Moving on now, on this date in 1990, which was 30 years ago today, Tennessee stud Robert Fuller would beat Ricky Steamboat in a tournament final to crown the first NAWA heavyweight championship. NAWA, which I believe was the North American Wrestling Alliance, was basically an independent promotion, or based out of North Carolina, based out of the Carolinas, I believe. So at this point in time, they crowned their first heavyweight champion, which was Robert Fuller defeating Ricky Steamboat in the final of that on this date in 1990. So to repeat one last time, on this date in 1990, Robert Fuller would defeat Ricky Steamboat in the tournament final to crown the first North American Wrestling Alliance um, heavyweight champion. And on this date in 2007, Powerpuff Girls Z would conclude its run on TV Tokyo, its 52 episode run on the anime Powerpuff Girls Z would conclude its 52 episode run on TV Tokyo on this date in 2007, which was 13 years ago. And now, with that all being said, if you guys would like to contact me directly, my Discord link is in the links below. You can direct message me there. You can check out the Discord and join if you'd like. Also, I'm still promoting a bunch of different dub companies, as you know, Funimation is not the only game in town, and it's important that we do try to support other dub voice actors and companies where we can, and support anime where we can. By by talking about it, by getting VAs, um, getting VAs invited to cons and stuff like that. If you can afford to buy the products, then you should try to buy the product as much as you can as well, if you can afford it. Um, also, let's see. Also, I'm still, of course, promoting Vic's GoFundMe as well as the. And from what I understand, it's now, I guess, about 2 weeks left on the extension of that Umbrella Guy and Little Umbrella Girls Indiegogo projects. Um, it's if you guys want to check it out, I have the link below there. As always, guys, never feel like you have to donate. If you have the means to, and it's on your heart to do so, please consider donating. If you have already donated, please consider donating again. And if you cannot donate, you can still help out the cause by sharing the link. Because after all, sharing is caring. You never know. Maybe somebody in your circle of friends may want to help out the cause. And if you like this content, I please ask that you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you are subscribed, I hope you guys will continue to watch my videos, because and I hope you guys will watch the streams coming up, and the VA premieres that are on Friday as well. But I hope you guys will like, comment, share, and subscribe. I would look forward to the conversations with you guys as long as they're civil and respectful. We can always agree to disagree. And also, don't forget, first off, this Friday is my next VA profile premiere, which is big and small. This week I'll be focusing in on Calgary-based voice actress Meredith Taylor Perry. Some interesting other side facts about her as well that you guys might be interested in, especially those in the Calgary, Alberta, Canada area. So I hope you guys will tune in. And also, this Sunday will be the second of my trial streams as I figure out how to stream and stuff. And I hope you guys will join me for that. Give me some feedback, and hopefully it will open the door to me streaming, to doing a regular stream during the week. That's my hope and plan. So until tomorrow, guys, I will see you later. Bye.